Did you see X-Men Days of Future Past when Wolverine had to warp back in time and warn earlier versions of all the X-Men about all the problems that were coming and what decisions they need to make? And the big point of tension of the entire movie was how hard it is to go back in time and convince people of things when your superpower is stabbing people with hand knives. That movie was ridiculous and fun and over the top, but it does kind of raise an interesting question. I mean, what would it take for you to go back in time and deliver a message that defies the laws of physics and reason in a way that would convince people for whom there was a lot on the line? I've met a few people who are predisposed to believing anything and everything just because it sounds fun. But most people I know, even theists, tend to be skeptics at heart. If something sounds fantastical, unless there's some sort of proof or good evidence, they treat it as such. In Luke 1:26-38, a young girl is going to get one of the strangest yet most important messages that anybody has ever received ever. Mary's going to get told that she's going to be pregnant and that she's going to have a baby and the baby's going to be Jesus, and that's kind of a big deal. But how would you show up if it was your job to deliver that message and convince her? And maybe the more important question is, if someone showed up to deliver you that message, what would it take for you to be convinced? Well, that's what this kid is going to have to sort through, and I think she handles it really well. So to fully wrap your brain around what's going on in this passage, it's really important to remember what we did in the last episode, where we saw a similar revelation occur for Zechariah, who found out that his wife Elizabeth was going to become pregnant and they were going to have a kid, and that kid was supposed to be named John, and John was going to be the forebearer for all the stuff that was going to happen with Jesus. Zechariah was skeptical about this, Elizabeth was excited about this. End of that story for the moment. Break away to this story. Verses 26 and 27. In the 6th month, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. We're just going to take this thing and go proper pronoun to proper pronoun. So God sent Gabriel. This is the same angel who recently went as a messenger to Zechariah in the last passage. He sent him to Nazareth in Galilee. Galilee is a region of Judea up north. It's rural. Nazareth is not an impressive town. It's a big town now, but it wasn't at the moment. And in the same way that the Shire in The Lord of the Rings comes with this connotation of how remarkable it is that a great hero came from such a simple place, so it is with Nazareth. This is the last place anybody would have expected the Messiah to be from. We get on to Joseph, who was a descendant of David. The fact that Joseph is descended from David is a really big deal that's going to come up a lot more as we work further into the story of Jesus. But the quick version is this. God had promised that redemption for the people of Israel, and really for everybody, was going to come through this line of David. David is the king of the Jews from about 1,000 years earlier, who's regarded as ruling over Israel in the golden age of their existence. Everybody here wants to get back to how awesome it was when David is in charge. And so the Messiah, being a descendant of David, is a really important component of what he's supposed to be about. And the final name to come up is the Virgin Mary. Everybody's heard of this lady because, well, she's the most important female religious figure in all of history. And you're going to see as we go through this passage that she earned it. She's a remarkable character who's being confronted with a very big set of expectations and very weighty stuff. In verse 28, it says, "The angel went to her and said, 'Greetings, you who are highly favored, the Lord is with you.'" So obviously those were really nice things to say. I mean, greatly favored by God and all of this. I mean, that's wonderful. But common sense for anybody who's paying attention in this situation would say, even if I'm favored and this is a good message, the fact that God went to the trouble to break the laws of time and space to deliver it to me means that things about my life are about to change dramatically. And as a result, verse 29, Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. She would have been raised around the stuff that we call the Old Testament, so she would have known that when God communicated with Noah, kind of something big happened right after that. She would have known that when God communicated with Abraham about what was going to happen with his son, kind of some big dramatic things happened after that. She would have known that when God communicated with Moses, kind of some big things happened after that in Egypt. So what's it going to be here? Are we talking about sacrifices, frogs raining from heaven, or a giant flood? It's always something big. She's right to be apprehensive. But the angel said to her, "Don't be afraid, Mary. You found favor with God. You'll be with child and give birth to a son, and you're to give him the name Jesus." Now see, the first half of that sentence, if I'm, say, a young girl, and a lot of people estimate that Mary was probably about 15 at this point, and the second half of that sentence, see, they don't line up so well to me. The part about, like, this is good, and the other part about like, you're going to get pregnant real soon here, that's troublesome. And the reason for that is because she wasn't married to Joseph at this point. She was in a Jewish betrothal, which is a rather complicated system. Now, if you go to church on Christmas Eve, you've heard this part a zillion times, but here's the fast version just to keep it fresh. Mary and Joseph were betrothed, which means they were basically married in terms of the expectations of faithfulness and building a household for each other, but obviously they weren't together physically and they're not actually married yet. It was a huge, long, drawn-out process. So the commitment is there, but they're not fully man and wife, if you know what I'm saying. This girl is smart. She knows that if she is pregnant, even if this was God's idea, while she's in the betrothal stage with Joseph, that's calamitous for her future. It's overwhelmingly likely that Joseph isn't going to want anything to do with her, that there are going to be huge social consequences to pay with her family and her community, and she would be rightly terrified. But Gabriel goes on, he says in verse 32, he'll be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever. His kingdom will never end. That promise was a lot for Mary to take in, but that promise is frankly a lot for me to take in. There's a ton in there, so let's just break it down one bit at a time. First, you're going to have a son. Second, you're going to name him Jesus. Third, he's going to be great. Not good or special or likable or in the advanced studies program. He's going to be great. Fourth, and this is where it gets good, he's going to be called the Son of the Most High. It's our first hint at Jesus being the Son of God, God taking on human flesh. We'll talk about the implications of that in just a minute. Fifth, he's going to sit on the throne of David. That has huge implications for a Jewish person at this time, but also if you look at all of the intricate language of the Old Testament and what David symbolizes and what that means through all of the prophetic stuff that happens in the big fat middle chunk here, you realize that, okay, I mean, who we're talking about here, this is the Messiah, right, everybody? This is the one we've all been looking for, the predicted one who's going to come and redeem everything and make it better, the extension of what God started to do through his interactions with the Jewish people and ultimately is going to give as a gift to all of humankind to bring about redemption. That is who we're talking about. And Mary would be figuring that out at this point as well. Gabriel says that Jesus will rule over the house of Jacob and that his kingdom will never end. So what we have here in about that much text is an explanation of who Jesus is, what he's there to do, what the implications of that are going to be in the future. Before we get on to Mary's response, let me try to just squeegee away all of that thick, complex, religious-sounding language and put this in a way that makes more sense for people other than Mary and the immediate audience. What is being said here is that the solution to the human problem is at hand. And by human problem, I mean that thing that we all know is going on. I mean, death, struggle, chaos, politics, war, all the things that are hard about the world in the grand scale, and all the things about us that are difficult, the things we can't fix about ourselves, the things we can't straighten out about ourselves. God is going to redeem that, and he's going to redeem it permanently, and this is the one who's going to do the redeeming. Mary and a Jewish audience would recognize this as the Messiah. For you and me, even if this isn't our cup of tea, we should still be able to recognize this as a promise that is for all people and that is the solution to what's wrong. This is the editing recliner where we edit together as an entire family in one recliner, which means that they've got a bird's eye view of this whole episode. So let's get some opinions. What do you think so far?
It's way too long, but other than that, it's really good.
She's not wrong. Marius?
We should make it into two halves. People will get bored.
Helena, agreed? Okay, well that's 3 votes to 1 to cut this thing in half. So this is going to be a 2-part episode. Nothing about this was scripted in any way. And we'll be back in the next one to get the second half of this thing. I'm Matt. Who are you?
Monica.
What?
Marius!
What?
Helena.
That was pretty good stuff. See you on the other side.